Five, four, three, two, one. 5, 4, 3. Mic level. Check. Check, check. 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 Okay, cool. Thumbs up from the back. Nice.
Where's the binder? She has. Oh, she took it out. Okay.
Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. I know Juan Soto should have gone to the Red Sox, right? I know. Tough crowd. Tough crowd. Wow. Check, check, check. You guys are good. Everything's good. All right.
Morning. My name is Amir Washington. I'm the CEO here at Boys and Girls Club of Newark, and I want to welcome you to our fabulous club. I grew up here as a member, and so this community, this club means the world to me, and I'm happy to serve since 2019 as its chief executive. And in the spirit of the season, I want to thank you all for being here, thank all of our community partners, our donors, and absolutely the state of New Jersey, who's been a lockstep partner with Boys and Girls Clubs across the state for many, many decades. So we're happy to have you all here. I'll turn it over to the AG's office.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm Angela Kai. I'm the Executive Assistant Attorney General. Before the Attorney General and our law enforcement and community partners come on in, we wanted to show you a quick video that will set up some of the stage for what we're about to talk about. Matt?
This is semi-automatic. One pull of the trigger. It's one shot. For each pull of the trigger, it takes this to turn this pistol into this. And that's just flipping a button on the back of the pistol.
Morning, everyone. First, I want to thank the Boys and Girls Club for hosting us here this morning. We're really privileged to be here, and I want to thank our law enforcement and community partners for being here today. And we've got a lot of them, and there's a reason for that. These law enforcement officers and leaders, and importantly, our county prosecutors. I want to thank Prosecutor Ciccone and Prosecutor Stevens. These folks represent tens of thousands of law enforcement officers, professionals, who work tirelessly every day to keep our residents safe. They're joining me today because they know, and they know what this historic announcement signifies, which is that we need to use every tool at our disposal to end the gun violence epidemic. I'm also incredibly honored to be joined by representatives from many of the organizations working across our state and across this country to end gun violence once and for all. And there are many behind me and many red shirts and others out in the crowd. I'm really, really proud to have you all here. Each of these groups represent thousands of volunteers that knows what's at stake. They know what's at stake in this fight. And I applaud them for working each day to save lives and end the devastation that gun violence leaves in its wake. They represent mothers and family members of victims of senseless tragedies. We lift up those victims' voices with today's announcement as well. I'm also extremely proud to be joined by members of my office, including Executive Assistant Attorney General Angela Kai and Ravi Ramanathan, the Director of the Statewide Affirmative Firearms Enforcement, better known as the SAFE Office, as well as members of their respective teams. As New Jersey's Attorney General and as our Chief Law Enforcement Officer, I have stressed since my very first day in office my unwavering commitment to keeping the residents of this state safe. And to that end, I'm steadfast in my commitment to ending the gun violence epidemic that has devastated too many New Jersey families and too many New Jersey communities. And we know we can stop this epidemic. When we recognize and treat gun violence like the public health crisis that it is, as we have done here in New Jersey, we can take common sense steps that can save lives. When we pass and successfully defend the strongest gun safety laws in America, despite an onslaught of attacks from interest groups backed by big money, we can save lives. When we share information and intelligence across our law enforcement agencies about the relatively few people actually driving violence in our state, and when we use our investigative and prosecutorial tools to hold them accountable, we can save lives. When we deploy violence intervention teams into our communities who can reach kids caught up in a cycle of violence and show them a better path, we can save lives. And when we hold the firearm industry accountable when they break our laws, the same way we hold literally every other industry accountable when they break our laws, we can save lives. And that's exactly what we have done. And it's why last year, New Jersey recorded the lowest number of shootings on record since we've been tracking those statistics. Nearly 600 fewer people were shot last year than were shot in 2012. That's 600 families who gathered last month for Thanksgiving instead of gathering for a funeral. And this year, we're on track to be meaningfully below where we were last year. That's real progress. Those are real lives saved. And that decrease is no accident. It's thanks to our collective efforts, especially the relentless and incredible efforts of our law enforcement officers. Thanks to their work, you are 6 times more likely to be shot and killed in Mississippi than you are in the state of New Jersey. But the stark reality is that even one death resulting from gun violence is one too many. And we're not going to rest until that number is 0. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is that gun violence is preventable. And we know it. We know it. We're not powerless against this epidemic. That's why today I'm announcing that I am leading a coalition of 16 states, attorneys general in 16 states, to form a multi-state coalition to hold irresponsible gun companies accountable when they break our laws and contribute to the gun violence epidemic. Collectively, we represent over 100 million people in this country. The coalition is the first of its kind in the nation, and it aims to reduce gun violence through coordinated enforcement of each state's respective civil liability and consumer protection laws and authorities. And I want to be clear. This is not about attacking anybody's Second Amendment rights. This is a movement to protect the lives of millions of adults and children in this country who deserve to live free from the fear of gun violence. It's a coordinated effort to ensure that our kids no longer have to grow up in a country, the only country in the world that looks like us, where the single most likely cause of death for them is a gun. I say this as the chief law enforcement officer and the chief lawyer of our state, who's been fighting the NRA and NSSF in court for years to keep guns out of gyms like this one, where our kids should be able to show up and play and have fun and not worried about being caught in crossfire. And I say this as a parent of 2 young kids, including my 1-year-old daughter, who had to participate in a mass shooting drill before she could even walk. That's who we're fighting for. And we know this work has never been more important because we know that the incoming Trump administration routinely sides with the gun industry over common sense gun safety protections. Just this year, President-elect Trump told an NRA gathering that, quote, "During my 4 years, nothing happened. And there was great pressure on me to do with guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield." Those are his words. For those of us who swore an oath to protect our residents, doing nothing is not an option. I and my fellow attorneys general from California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Vermont will not yield in our fight to end gun violence. We'll do what we do every single day. We'll fight to keep our residents safe. We'll work together like we did to combat big tobacco when they were putting profits ahead of the health of our residents, or opioid manufacturers who profited off of addiction crisis that still rages in our communities, or the social media companies like Meta and TikTok who put their greed ahead of the mental health and well-being of our kids. This is what we do, and now we are saying with one voice that we are committed to combating irresponsible business practices by gun manufacturers, distributors, and retailers that allow guns to land in the hands of those who would harm others, fueling the gun violence epidemic. Separately and jointly, our offices will pursue lawsuits as part of an overall effort to treat gun violence like that public health crisis that it is. Every industry must abide by the laws of our land. Every industry has to abide by our consumer protection laws. The firearms industry is no exception. This is about public safety. This is about fighting bad actors who care more about the profits that they make than the kids who are killed by their products. This is about standing up for the residents of our state. And so today, I'm proud to announce the very first action to emerge from this multi-state coalition and the most consequential lawsuit ever filed by state attorneys general against a major firearms manufacturer. Today, I am announcing that alongside the state of Minnesota, we have filed a lawsuit against Glock to once and for all end the machine gun industry, homemade machine gun industry in this country. I want to give a huge shout out to my colleague, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, and his team for their phenomenal work on this case and their commitment to keeping our residents safe. Our lawsuit alleges multiple violations of New Jersey's firearms industry public safety law, as well as other state laws. These violations stems from Glock's design and sale of its namesake pistols, which can be easily switched into illegal machine guns with just one small, inexpensive piece of plastic called a Glock switch, or an auto sear. It's a small add-on component the size of a dime or a Lego piece that, when added to the rear of a Glock pistol, makes that pistol function as a machine gun. For decades, Glock has knowingly sold products that anyone with a screwdriver and a YouTube video can turn into a military-grade machine gun in a matter of minutes. A switch enables a Glock to automatically fire up to 1,200 rounds per minute, a rate that's faster than many fully automatic and machine guns used by the United States military. And it does so with one trigger pull. In the video that you just saw, you can see how quickly and how easily this switch can take place and how devastating and deadly these firearms can be. Our complaint alleges that Glock has known about the switchability of its pistols for decades. The company's founder, the late Gaston Glock, and yes, his name was Gaston Glock, Gaston Glock himself developed and exhibited his own early prototype of a Glock switch as early as 1988. Our evidence shows that he himself even dry-fired a Glock modified with an early switch in a hotel room in Venezuela 36 years ago. In the years since, government entities, the ATF, Congress, attorneys general, among others, have put Glock on notice and demanded that they fix their product. And yet, Glock did nothing. Social media videos are rampant, showing Glock just how their products can be modified, and even glorifying switched Glocks in pop culture, sometimes even tagging Glock's corporate pages. And yet Glock did nothing. Many people even purchase Glock switches that have the Glock logo on them. And some even sent these Glock switches with the Glock logo back to Glock, asking Glock to fix it for them. And what did Glock do? It didn't modify its products so you couldn't apply the Glock switch, as it did, by the way, in European markets. It didn't work to protect the safety of Americans. It didn't try to come into compliance with federal and state laws and regulations governing machine guns. No. Glock's owners sat in Austria, where they are based, and lined their pockets with products paid for by American bloodshed. And they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. So for now, for under 20 bucks, or with the help of a 3D printer, anyone can purchase or make a Glock switch that can be fitted into the backplate of a Glock, converting it into a fully automatic weapon. Today, homemade Glock machine guns are flooding our nation's streets, endangering the lives of civilians, including our kids, and law enforcement officers everywhere. In fact, law enforcement officers are finding switched Glock machine guns with increasing frequency in crime investigations, as the folks behind me could tell you, into everything from home invasions and burglaries to narcotic sales to weapons trafficking and homicides. Just a little over a year ago, at a public housing complex down the street from where we stand today, a shooter fired 28 rounds from a Glock homemade machine gun in just over 1 second, striking 3 people. 28 rounds in 1 second. That's not in some war zone overseas. That's down the street. These weapons, essentially do-it-yourself machine guns, as I've said, pose a risk not only to bystanders, but to law enforcement and other first responders as well. And too often, juveniles have been found in possession of them or themselves have become the victims, either injured or killed by somebody armed by one of these switched Glock machine guns. The ATF reports that more than 5,400 machine gun conversion parts were seized between 2017 and 2021. That's a 570% increase over the previous 5-year period. And in New Jersey, Glocks are an increasingly popular crime gun. We've seen recoveries of Glocks double from 2020 to 2023. So the danger is clear, but Glock has failed to take any meaningful step to protect American lives. Machine gun conversion devices are illegal under federal law and under state law, and our lawsuit filed in New Jersey courts in the Chancery Division demands that Glock suspend sales of the switchable guns to New Jersey civilians. In addition, we're also seeking restitution to make Glock pay for the harms that they've caused to our residents. With today's lawsuit, we want Glock and every member of the firearm industry to understand that New Jersey will enforce its laws and will pursue anyone who puts profits ahead of the safety of our residents, no matter how powerful they may be. This lawsuit, as I said, has been brought through our SAFE office, the first office of its kind dedicated to suing and holding bad actors in the firearms industry accountable. The complaint details the ways in which Glock designs, manufactures, markets, and distributes guns that, as a result of Glock's design choices, can easily be switched into illegal, cheap, and accessible machine guns. I created our SAFE office to hold the firearms industry accountable and to save lives. Today's lawsuit is the latest action by SAFE to do just that. Gun dealers must operate under the laws of our state, and we will pursue every means available to ensure that they do so. Let me be clear. Law and order applies to the firearms industry, too. So let our actions send a strong message to the gun industry from the people of New Jersey. We're not going to allow a company based in Austria to turn American communities into a war zone, selling products that are killing American children, killing American cops, and killing innocent civilians. We're not going to let them continue to profit off of our bloodshed. We're sick of it. And today, we're doing something about it. So Glock, if you're listening in Austria, we're going to see you in court, right here in Essex County, in the state of New Jersey, in the United States of America. I want to acknowledge Assistant Attorney General David Light of the Special Litigation Section of the Division of Law, SAFE Deputy Director Jeremy Erschow, my senior counsel, Melina Menegin-Leorenza, special counsel Ken Tabor and Chris Cafferoni of Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman for their leadership in helping represent the state in this matter, and I want to note they're doing it pro bono. And I want to thank the entire team of attorneys who worked tirelessly on this effort. I underscore, this is the most consequential and significant lawsuit ever filed by state attorneys general against a major firearms manufacturer. It's the first legal action taken by the coalition of attorneys general that I mentioned before, dedicated to using every legal authority to hold bad actors in the gun industry accountable. I'm extraordinarily proud to lead that coalition. And while this may be the first multi-state lawsuit to emerge from that coalition, I promise you it will not be the last. Now it's my honor to turn the podium over to SAFE Director Ravi Ramanathan to discuss details of today's complaint.
All right. Thank you, General, for making those announcements today. I also want to extend my thanks to the many stakeholders who have joined us as well. Under state law, the SAFE Office is directed to investigate and, if appropriate, file civil lawsuits against those in the firearms industry who are not complying with New Jersey laws. In fact, exactly 1 year ago today, SAFE brought its first civil enforcement actions. Today, we continue that work thanks to the dedicated public servants that I have the privilege of leading at SAFE. Our complaint, filed today in the Essex County Chancery Division, alleges multiple violations of New Jersey's firearms industry public safety law and our state's Product Liability Act by Glock Incorporated and its Austrian parent company. As the General just stated, those violations stem from Glock's design and sale of its namesake handguns, which can be easily switched into illegal machine guns with the attachment of one small piece of plastic called a Glock switch or an auto sear. As you have now seen, all too unfortunately, Glocks with switches can fire at a rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, faster than many fully automatic firearms used by the U.S. military. Our complaint alleges that Glock handguns, ostensibly sold to American civilians as semi-automatic weapons, can easily be switched into machine guns because Glock deliberately designed them that way. In 1982, Glock introduced its inaugural 9mm semi-automatic handgun model under the G17 name. Glock designed that pistol with a striker fire design with machine gun functionality inherent to that design. Glock has known about its handguns' intrinsic ability to function as machine guns from the near inception of the G17. Glock itself readily exploited this feature when it developed and released the successor version of the G17, the G18, which it openly markets to military and police customers as a weapon capable of automatic fire. Our evidence shows that as early as 1988, Glock's founder, Gaston Glock, even developed and exhibited his own early prototype of a Glock switch, demonstrating it on a G17 to a then 22-year-old Venezuelan individual named Jorge Leon, who had developed his own prototype. Leon later patented a design that has become a basis for today's aftermarket Glock switches. Glock has been well aware of the manipulability of its handguns for decades. This feature of Glock's design was so obvious and easy to exploit that even Leon, an individual unaffiliated with Glock, could independently conceive, construct, and market a prototype to make a G17 fire in automatic mode. Unsurprisingly, when those designs became public, it did not take long for aftermarket Glock switches to appear in the outside world, unleashing Glock's handguns' inherent machine gun capabilities on the public. We have not escaped that violence in New Jersey. Switch Glock machine guns are increasingly found in our streets, in our parks and homes, and on our college campuses. And Glock, despite knowing about the switchability of its handguns for decades, has done nothing meaningfully to stop it. That behavior, placing profits over human life, is unconscionable. But fortunately, here in New Jersey and in other states, including Minnesota, we have laws in place to end this harmful conduct, and that is what we are seeking to do here today. Our lawsuit brings 5 counts against Glock under our state's firearms industry public safety law and 1 count under our Products Liability Act. We are seeking an order that will stop Glock from continuing to market and distribute easily switched handguns to civilian consumers in New Jersey, as well as restitution for the public harm Glock has caused. In any other industry, the manufacturer of a product that could so easily be made to function in an illegal or dangerous manner would be required by law to modify its design to keep the public safe. Sales of that product would stop. The gun industry should not be treated any differently. That is what we are demanding today. I'd like to close by thanking SAFE Deputy Director Jeremy Ershow and the rest of the SAFE team for their tireless work on this complaint. I also want to thank our incredible legal team, led by Special Counsel Ken Tabor and Chris Cafferone of Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman, and Assistant Attorney General David Light of the Division of Law's Special Litigation Section. Thank you all so much for your hard work and dedication, and I'll turn it back to General Platkin.
Thanks, Ravi. I'm going to open up for questions in a minute. But before I do, I just want to say a reason why we wanted all of these folks to be here today and all of the legal team that's worked on these cases and on other cases. You know, it's really easy to be cynical in this moment, and a lot of folks are. And I think when you see what the Supreme Court has done to common sense gun safety laws, sitting in Washington where they don't have to come and meet with victims of gun violence who have suffered unimaginable tragedies the way many of us do, it's easy to forget that there are good folks doing hard work across the spectrum of our state. Law enforcement officers risking their lives to keep people safe. Lawyers who don't accept that there's nothing we can do about these harms. Advocates who've pushed to fight for new laws, laws like the laws that we're using today, that I used to create the SAFE office, and we've now used to file the largest gun manufacturer lawsuit by any state attorneys general. So I wanted to make this point because it does take a village. Those numbers that we talk about, those are not just statistics, and they don't just happen. Those are people's lives, and they're happening because of the work that we're doing in New Jersey. And I wish they were happening in 50 states. I wish that coalition I announced was 50 states. And we'll get there one day. But I'll take 100 million residents over nothing. And these states and these folks are fighting for people in our community who are sick and tired of living under the threat of violence. I'm sick and tired of going to school or work or a playground or a zoo and becoming a statistic. That's what this is about. Happy to take any questions. Linda?
From what I've read, the lock manufacturers created a fifth generation non-millimeter that apparently is capable of blocking the switch. So when you say that they've done nothing, could you address this fifth gen gun, number one? Number two, what are you asking for in terms of compensation from the manufacturer?
Yeah, I'll let Ravi address the fifth generation in a second, but I want to underscore a point. Glock is an Austrian-based company. Their executives are in Austria. Austria is pretty close to Germany, I think. Glock is selling a version of their firearm in Germany that cannot be switched. Not that it's slightly harder to switch. It cannot be switched. That firearm is not available here in the United States. If you want to.
Sure. On the fifth gen question, I'm not going to go into the back and forth of a factual dispute at this point, but that will be something that will come up over the course of the normal litigation. But that being said, there are still many of these weapons before the fifth gen that are still on the street. And putting that aside, as for restitution, what we're looking for is compensation for the harm that has been caused to the state of New Jersey over the course of these weapons being released to the public.
Yeah, on restitution, I'll be simpler. We're going to seek every dollar to get back for the harms that they've caused here. Mike?
Help me understand why the lawsuit is New Jersey, Minnesota only at this point, while other states be doing it?
Look, it's possible. Here's, 2005, President Bush signed one of the worst laws ever signed by a president that, unlike every other industry, gave the firearms industry broad immunity from suit in federal court. The tobacco industry doesn't have that, the automobile industry, the opioid industry, even big tech doesn't have that kind of protection from our federal government. But states can file lawsuits under their own state laws, and each states have different laws. And so the point of this coalition is to say, for the first time ever, states representing over 100 million people are going to work together in bringing lawsuits when we can, using whatever respective authorities we have. And so sometimes there might be 2 states on an action, sometimes there might be 15. It depends on the particular nature of the case, on the evidence that they can collect, and on the laws that they have in their states. So yes, it's always possible that more states might join this. As you know, we sent a letter to Glock some time ago, which had a number of states on it. And I hope and suspect there will be more states looking to join our efforts. But I'm really proud, again, A.G. Ellison and the Minnesota team and our team, because of this coalition, we're able to work together and coordinate and collect facts that made a really strong complaint in a way that we've never been able to do before. And this is a real example of what can come from that kind of coordination. Yeah.
How is it legal to even manufacture these switches?
Well, it's not. Conversion machine gun devices are not legal, and we're separately looking at that. But the Glock, again, Gaston Glock in 1988 is in Venezuela doing a demonstration of his. This is in the complaint. His firearm to the Venezuelan military. According to the evidence we've collected, he had heard about Mr. Leon, who was 22 at the time. Not like he was some 50-year-old who had been trained for a while. He was 22. He figured it out. He had heard about it. And he pulls, as he's doing his demonstration, he pulls out of his pocket his own prototype of a Glock switch and applies it and demonstrates it for the military in his presence. And then, according to the complaint, 2 days later? 2 days later, he invites Mr. Leon to his hotel room so that he can see Mr. Leon's prototype, because Mr. Leon didn't have it on his body when he did the military demonstration 2 days earlier. And of course, he's not going to fire live ammunition in the room because he doesn't want to get shot. So he dry fires it. And you hear the same rapid fire clicking that you heard. So he knew exactly what these weapons were capable of 36 years ago. And when you go online, you can see how rampantly available these switches are. The social media videos demonstrating and glorifying, as I said, these homemade machine guns. So there's no question, or as our complaint makes clear, that Glock knew about it, that Glock ignored it, and Glock chose not to take meaningful and reasonable steps to keep Americans safe. Yeah.
Are there any examples of some officers out there? So there are some examples from officers who are on the streets of either confiscating these kinds of weapons or particularly any crimes that they've used?
Yeah, we include a number of them in the complaint, which is now available. So I'll defer to the complaint. But the answer is yes. As I said, we're seeing them picked up in a whole range of cases. And it's not just New Jersey. You're seeing modified Glock homemade machine guns used as a crime of choice in mass shootings and in criminal activity across the country.
Is it just Glock? Is that the only gun manufacturer that has this type of switch? Are there other gun manufacturers? And can you speak to just the law specific to New Jersey as it relates to possession of a machine gun? That is illegal across the board, am I correct?
Yes, so possession of a machine gun and possession of a Glock switch are illegal. As for other weapons, Glock switches are the most prevalent type of auto sear available on the street. There are maybe 1 or 2 others that work with other guns, but because of the design of Glock's handguns, an auto sear is the most popular type of switch that is out in the black market today.
I'll assume your next question. If you're out there selling other types of guns that do this, we're going to look at you too. And so I would suggest you see this and decide maybe you should fix your products. And, you know, to the point that the question that was asked, are we seeing these? Yes. Law enforcement officers are holding folks accountable who possess these firearms all the time. They're getting locked up. But you know what? The people who are profiting off of the harms that those individuals are causing in our communities also need to pay a price. And this is standard stuff. This is how industries have changed. It's how we stopped, again, tobacco companies from advertising products they knew were unsafe to our kids. It's how we got opioid distributors to stop telling people that opioid pills were safe when they knew they weren't. It's how we're going to get social media companies to stop peddling products that they know are harmful to our kids' mental health. It's not like we're picking on the firearms industry. We're doing the same thing that we do with every other industry to protect our residents.
I have an off-topic question here, General, on the drones.
Yeah, I figured you might.
They're not a threat, but there's no explanation of what they are, who's sending them, where they came from. Can you help us understand how the governor can say that they're not a threat if we don't really know much about them?
Yeah, I'm going to defer. First of all, I know the governor is working around the clock on this. And second, I'm going to defer to the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness and State Police, who are the lead investigative agencies on that. And the third thing I would just say, the feds need to help. This is clearly a federal issue. They need to step in and help. Again, I'm going to defer to OHSMP, who's the lead agency dealing with the federal government on that. Yeah. Sure.
We spoke with the special prosecutor, James, with the special prosecutor during the original racial profiling case involving the state police. And we asked him about the slowdown report. And we know what I'm talking about. So his comment was, and I'm going to quote what I see in the report is, this white organization, implicit bias is there, and unfortunately it's coming out in motor vehicle stops and searches. We won't see a change until the state police change their structure. Can you comment on that? And if that's the case, where does it want to stop?
Yeah, I issued my comment yesterday. Given there's an ongoing investigation, I'm going to defer to my comment, which we're happy to provide to you, Brenda. Any other press questions? Sorry. Sure, I'll take.
Well, not really a question so much as this is the first of these lawsuits, hopefully not the last, so I'm thankful for the years before that.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us get there. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the team for doing this work. I want to thank our brave law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line to end the gun violence epidemic. And I'm grateful that this work is having an effect. This lawsuit is going to save lives. And I'm really proud of the team that worked tirelessly to make it happen. Thank you all.